Everything you desire is waiting for you to claim it. There's no creating involved, only invention through imagination and building through action. You are at the center of all your desires, dreams, and achievements. Welcome to Designing Your Life Today, the podcast that's all about your success, achieving your goals, building wealth through your business, and building your most passionate, powerful, magnificent life. Discover ways to use your purpose to connect you to serving others and living your dreams. I am Pat Council, and I know you are built by design to win. And it all begins with knowing how to tap into your success energy. Let's get on the path of discovery, decisive action, development, and unwavering dedication to your life's calling. It's time to embark on a transformative journey where your deepest passions become your most rewarding achievements. Embrace your power to shape your destiny, because this is your moment to do life with power. Hello, Power Up Nation. I'm Pat Council, and on Designing Your Life Today, I'm going to talk about paying the price. So it's pay the price and get the rewards. What are some of the things that you would like to have in your life? Do you want to have better health? Do you want to have more wealth? Do you want to build stronger relationships? Whether those relationships are with more friends, new friends, friends that having friends at all, or with someone in intimate relationship, be it a spouse or someone that you're dating to begin with, or someone nice to date for companionship, whatever the case may be, there are things that we all desire on some level. And you know what? I once had someone, we were just talking, we were all sitting around and we were talking. And they made a little joke and they said, well, all I want is to be left alone. And I said, you know what? There's a price to pay for that as well. So you need to do what it takes and you will be left alone. I promise you that. And so with that being said, I wanted to talk about this today because there is a friend of mine, and he's an older gentleman that I see sometimes when I go to the bookstore. And he came in and I said, well, how are you doing today? And normally he says, you know, I'm doing great. How are you? Or I'm doing fine. How are you? Or everything's good, or I'm blessed. But this time he said, you know what? I'm not doing so well because I had a rough day yesterday. So in my mind, I was thinking, well, you know, he is almost 85. So maybe it has had something to do with his health. Well, it turns out I was 100% wrong. And I listened to him talk about why the previous day was went so badly for him. And he began to talk about the fact that he was stopped by the police. He was driving outside of Florida. And he said he was speeding and the police stopped him. And he said he mouthed off to the police. Now, before you guys start thinking, is this a black-white thing? No, it's not. He's Caucasian, and the police officer was Caucasian as well. So this isn't about that. This is about paying the price. So let's press on. I wanted to paint a clear picture for you guys. So I listened to his story. And he said, you know, I started mouthing off. I started giving him a hard time and he gave me a ticket. So my question to him was, well, how fast were you going? He said, well, I was supposed to be going 40 miles an hour, but I was driving 75 miles an hour. So I said, why were you driving 75 miles an hour? He says, I was driving 75 miles an hour because there was no one around. Well, here's the thing. This is how accidents happen. We don't know who's coming around the curve. We don't know who's coming, let's say, crossing an intersection or because they either ran a stop sign or they stopped and then they thought it was okay to proceed. But because you're going faster than normal, you reach that destination a little bit earlier and slam, bang. Okay, big accident. So we don't know what's going to happen. So with that being said, and I'm not saying I don't speed sometimes. I'm confessing. Sometimes I go a little bit faster than the speed limit. Am I right? No, but I don't go that fast. And I said, okay, so you were going almost double what the speed limit was. So 5 minutes shy of going double. And I said, and so when the police officer stopped you, what made you mouth off? Why were you rude to him? I said, is it because you were pretending you weren't going as fast, or what was going on? He said, no. I told him I was going fast. And he said, but I also told him, you know what? You didn't have to stop me. And he said, and plus, now that I'm talking to you, I don't like your attitude. So needless to say, a few words went back and forth. And so the police officer said, you know what? First, he was going to give him a ticket for $155. Then the police officer said, you know what? I'm going to give you a ticket for $175. He said at $155, there would have been no points on your license. He says, but at $175, there will be points. And he's still mouthing off, right? First, in the beginning, he probably wouldn't have gotten a ticket if he was just polite. That's the first thing. Okay. First of all, if you know you're wrong and you know you're speeding, then you kind of be prepared to take your medicine. But being a little softer with things, probably it would have come out better for him. And even he admitted that. And I said, well, why were you constantly, trying to antagonize this police officer? He said, I don't know. It's just something I felt like doing. And I don't get into politics. Okay, I can't say I'm not that into politics. I believe God is first, and then everything else we deal with from there. However, he is a liberal. And so I said, okay. And we are close enough to where we can talk straight with each other. So I kind of made a joke and I said, so was that the liberal side of you coming out? And he laughed. He said, yeah, it was. He said, I just felt like giving him a hard time. And I said, well, it cost you $175. And I said, when in fact, if you had been nicer and just acknowledged, okay, officer, I was speeding, I was going too fast. He may have given you a warning, considering your age. Sometimes they do cut older people a little bit of slack. So I said, he may have just given you a warning. I said, but you immediately lit into him for no reason. And he said, yeah, I have no reason. He said, I was just annoyed that he stopped me. I said, so let me get this straight. You broke the law. Okay. You were going almost double the speed limit, 45 or 5 miles shy of going double. I said, and he should not have stopped you. I said, it is a part of his job to protect other people. So the whole protect and serve thing. Now, I'm not going to get into the fact that, okay, they're not all that way. I'm not getting into that. Let's just stick with the story. So I said, it was his job to stop you because who knows what was ahead? Who knows what could have happened? So he was providing you with protection as well as perhaps some unknown driver. Well, I didn't see anybody around. That does not mean they're not around, and it doesn't mean they won't show up. So don't worry. We're getting to the point where I talk about paying the price so that you can get the rewards. And I'm going to cover perhaps 5 categories where you want to consider paying the price so that you can get the rewards that you're after. But I think this story is such a good story about people who want something and they're upset because there's a price to pay. And so to kind of get to the end of the story, I said, so how do you feel now? I said, because here it is a day after this has happened to you, and that police officer has probably gone on with whatever it is he does, and perhaps giving more tickets or not. I don't know. I said, and here it is. You're still flustered by it. You're still upset by it. So I have to ask you, was it worth it? And he said, you know what? He said, I will only tell you and maybe a couple of my other friends this. He said, but that was so not worth it. He said, all it did was it made me feel worse. I said, so he said, and I'm going to end up having to pay a $175 ticket. And so, and this came from his mouth. He said, you know what, Pat? He said, you're right. He said, all I had to do was be nice, acknowledge what I did, and stay quiet and let it run its course. And he said, I realize that now. He said, but I just felt like picking with him. And he said, and as a result of me deciding that I wanted to do it how I wanted to do it, he said, I have to pay the price. So I think that's a great kind of analogy or a great lead into understanding what happens when you either, let's say, do the opposite of what it takes to get what you want. Because what he really desired was a slap on the wrist. But he did the opposite, being rude, giving him a hard time. He even told the officer said, well, there's no need for you to have an attitude with me. And he said he retorted with, well, I don't like your attitude either. And the officer told him, he said, you do know the way you're talking to me and the way you're handling this situation. He says, you do know I could arrest you. And he said, at that point, reality kicked in because he didn't want to go to jail over a ticket or over being stopped. So the point is, he said he realized he had gone too far, and that is not the price he wanted to pay. He said, not only that, he said, it kind of ruined my whole trip. He went to visit a friend. He said, it kind of ruined my trip. He said, I had a good time with my friend there, but then on the way back, all of this happened. He said, and all of this has overshadowed that. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about paying the price. The object of the game is to get the rewards, not to get the punishment, not to get the things that you don't desire in your life. And as I said, that story is such a great way to illustrate how we do the opposite of what we need to do, and then we expect that we're going to get something more. He thought he should not have gotten a ticket. He thought that the police officer should have allowed him to speak to him with such disrespect and then let him go, that it wasn't a big deal, And so with that being said, a lot of times we keep thinking that life's going to give us all of these great rewards, these great prizes, these great things that we desire. We think that that's just going to happen, even if we're doing the opposite of what it takes to get those things. And so we kind of live in a society now where that sense of entitlement appears to be growing to the point where people think it's okay for them to do what they want to do, say what they want to say, and no price is to be paid for that. So with that being said, what are some of the things that you desire to have in your life? You guys know I talk a lot about goal setting on Designing Your Life Today. And we are going into we're in the second half of the year. And so this year's going by very quickly. Actually, last year went by very quickly. So things are just moving fast. Okay. And so where are you on your goal achievement journey? Where are you when it comes to building the life that you desire? Where are you when it comes to even achieving what you consider to be a very small goal? And where are you with any of this? Okay, so if you're not where you want to be, well, first of all, I want to remind you to go and sign up for our Summer Success Series, because starting July 13th, there's going to be some resources that I'm going to make available to you that's going to kind of help you have a conversation with yourself and help, if you're not on track, help put you on track. If you are on track, it will perhaps help you realize that you can take things up a notch, not taking it up in terms of changing your goals, but taking it up a notch in terms of momentum. So you can go to designingyourlifetoday.com/success series and go ahead and get your name on the list, and you'll be hearing more from us soon around the 13th. So let's get back to pay the price and get the rewards. Whatever the thing is that you desire, what does it require? Here are some of the rewards that we have to pay, or prices that we have to pay in order to get the rewards. First of all, when it comes to doing something you've never done, achieving something that you've never achieved, okay, you're going to need help. You're going to perhaps have to connect with someone somewhere who's either been there, done that, or who knows something that will help you create a strong blueprint that will allow you to at least start moving toward your dream. Here's the thing about that. When you create that blueprint, you put that blueprint together and you take the first step. This is the beautiful part. If it aligns with what you're called to do, if it aligns with your purpose, I can promise you opportunities will present themselves. You're going to meet people that will help you. God is going to send you what you need because you're doing your part. What is that saying? And I've heard this, and I don't know who started this quote, or who first said this, but he said, what is it? God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. So if you know you're called to do something and you're worrying about not having enough, how are you going to get started? What's next? Listen, just get started. Put your blueprint together. And when I say, you said, well, how can I get started, Pat, if I don't know what to do? The first thing to do is to write the vision and make it plain. This is also a biblical quote and a biblical scripture, biblical advice that is solid and sound. So when we talk about goals, do you know that statistics show that less than 3% of the people who set goals actually write those goals down? Most people just talk about, I want. Okay. And then there are people who get on YouTube and come out with their what they call wisdom. I don't call it wisdom, but what they call wisdom. And they go, oh, there's no need for you to set goals and there's no need for you to write goals. The Bible says write the vision and make it plain. Okay. And so it also says my people perish for lack of knowledge. It also says my people perish for lack of a vision. So you figure that one out. So with that being said, what is it you need to learn? So paying the price involves learning something new, having your mind open to learning something new, which leads me to the next one. In order for you to have your mind open to learning something new, you have to first adjust your attitude to say, you know what? I don't have to be a know-it-all. I don't have to be at the center of attention. I don't have to walk in and let pride stand in front of me and stop me from admitting, hey, this is something I don't know much about. I need help in this area. And I've shared this on this podcast before, but I can tell you any success that I've ever had throughout my entire business career, and after I left the military, I've been in business successfully ever since. Now, have I had some challenges? Yes. But the reason why I say successfully is because I'm still in business more than 25 years later. And so the reason why I've been able to be sustained in business is because I don't have a problem adjusting my attitude. I don't have a problem stepping into, let's say, the realm of humility so that I can make sure I follow through and carry out the purpose for which I was put here on this earth. Have I gotten off track sometimes? Absolutely. But it is humility that allows me to get back on track. Humility is that strong desire to do that which God put you on earth to do. So does that mean you don't have to be afraid? Well, what it does mean is you need to check that spirit of fear, because once again, the Bible tells us God did not give us a spirit of fear, but it's of power, love, and a sound mind. So fear, and maybe, I probably need to talk about that in more detail in another podcast. So fear is actually taught. It's actually learned. Okay. We see someone else being afraid. And I've heard people say, well, my mom always told me don't do this. Are you kidding me? But if it's stopping you from following through on your purpose, okay, you can still love your mama. You can still respect your mama. But it is important that you do what you've been called to do. Okay, because that is not something that comes from God. Doesn't mean that your mom was wrong. It means that fear belonged to her. It doesn't have to belong to you. You see, as I said, you can love your parents and not be disrespectful. But at the same time, you don't have to be like them unless you want their lifestyle. If they have the best life ever, okay, I don't know. Okay, you might want to follow that. I don't know. But my philosophy has always been, you know what, all the mistakes I've made throughout my life, I find that a lot of them have been learned. A lot of them are because I wasn't taught something, but I also found that the best way to correct them is I go to the Bible, I find a scripture, and I go, oh, so that's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's humility. So that means you have to adjust your attitude and be open to learning something new. So paying the price involves, number one, learning. Paying the price involves, number two, adjusting your attitude. When you start to do this, then all of a sudden, not only will you imagine the rewards because you went into it desiring something, but you're going to see the possibility of actually manifesting the reward, realizing the reward, recognizes that, wait a minute, I can touch this. I can actually have this. This can happen. It's happening right now. So you can actually see that. All right. So instead of holding yourself back. So that, which takes me to the third point. Part of paying the price so that you can get the reward is you have to adopt a different mindset. You cannot operate under the same mindset and expect that you're going to get let's say the outcome that's opposite to the mindset that you're currently operating under. And it goes back to my friend who got the ticket. And I said, okay, you are thinking back in the day where, you know, people would call the police pigs and they would fight with them and that kind of thing. And sometimes the police would let them off the hook. I said, so if you fast forward to now, people still disrespect the police. And I'm not saying all police are good. Okay. It's not what I'm saying. And I'm not here to judge it one way or the other. But I'm saying in his particular case, and I always ask specific questions. And I said, well, do you think the police was unfair? And he said, no. As a matter of fact, he even told me, he said, I need to ask for forgiveness. And he said, because the police was trying to give me a way out and I would not take it. As a result, I said, you didn't get a reward, but what you did, you lost something. So I said, it's okay. I said, what you've done is you've adopted a different mindset. The minute he started talking about the fact that he needed to ask for forgiveness, that means he was willing to change his mind about how he handled that situation, which also indicates that if he ever gets into that situation again, he will most likely handle it very differently. So in order for you to grow and go to the next point in your life or go to that next level or even achieve the most basic goal that you've been working on achieving and somehow can't figure out why it isn't happening, in order for this to happen, you have to adopt a different mindset. You see, if you continue to get the same results where you're not achieving, you're not growing, nothing's changing for you, then that means you're operating under the same mindset. And apparently that mindset is not serving you. So here's a good example of a mindset that people sometimes want to hold on to. And you know what? Been there, done that until I figured it out that, wait a minute, all this does is make me feel badly. And what I'm talking about is where people adopt this mindset where they think if I complain enough, then it's going to change. And you know what's funny? I learned that lesson the hard way. And this, we're talking years ago. Okay. And sometimes, you know, I don't do it, let's say more so now, but we're talking, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or so, and 20 years ago. Okay. Where I'm hit and miss, in other words. You know, 20 years ago, I was like full force complaining. And then I recognized that in order for me to be successful in my business, I needed to put that to the side. Now, in all full disclosure, I had a very good friend who used a William Shakespeare quote. And he knew that I had studied the works of William Shakespeare when I was in college. So he used the quote and he said, "Me doth think you complaineth too much." So, or protest too much, rather. Me doth thinketh that you protest too much, that thou protest too much. So that's kind of what the quote was. And so I don't know which Shakespeare play it was from. But when he said that, I knew exactly what he was saying, and he was doing it, and he was being very nice with his delivery, but I got his point. It's like, okay. And I checked myself and I said, wow, you know what? Why am I whining like a big baby? I'm still not getting the outcome that I want. So you know what I had to do? I had to change my mindset and look for solutions. So I'm more solution oriented to this day. Okay. And as I said, 10 years ago, I said, all right, so like I said, hit and miss, but many years went by and then, little things happened. And I thought, okay, let me complain. And I complained a little bit to one of my friends, but I caught myself. Okay. Because I still have that. I still see that friend in my head saying that to me. And I caught myself and I said, you know what? Instead of me complaining to you, let me ask you a question. Okay, here's the problem. Do you have any solutions? So I'm more solution oriented now. Okay, so you have to adopt a different mindset. So we've got learning, we've got adjusting your attitude. Now we've got adopting a different mindset. Let's move on. Okay, we're talking about paying the price. So the other thing about paying the price is movement. So when we talk about movement, we're talking about you acting on something. I've had people who come to me and they're complaining about something. And then when I started asking them certain questions and I said, well, have you examined all your options? Well, no. Well, do you have an option? Yeah, there is something I want to do. And I said, okay, and how long have you been thinking about doing it? Well, it's been a few months. Well, why haven't you done anything? And then they get quiet. And eventually I don't know. Some of them say, I don't know. And some of them are honest and say, well, I wasn't sure it would work. Or, I was a little bit afraid. And that, you know what? It's okay. It's okay to even just say, I haven't done anything. Because at that point, an awareness kicks in. Okay. And at that point, you have a decision to make. Do I want to pay the price? Paying the price means I have a solution. Am I going to act on it? If I'm not going to act on it, then I need to accept the fact that this is what my life is going to look like. And this is what my life is going to be. Perhaps a year from now, 5 years from now, who knows, 10 years from now. But here's the rest of that. The caveat to that is if you say, well, I'm okay, I'll be okay. Well, here's the thing. Nothing stays the same. So if there's no movement, there's no action, that means you don't get to evolve into being that magnificent person that you were designed to be. It also means that your purpose, your calling, it never comes to the forefront. And so you're not serving anyone. And most importantly, you're not serving yourself. And you're not being obedient to God. In other words, whatever purpose he put you here for. And see, that's the beauty of life. We have so many people and everybody has like this purpose. And you say, well, you know what? I like fitness. How is that a purpose? Because you know what? There are those of us who can do the work, can do the fitness exercises, but we need a regimen. We need some help. We need some guidance. And for people who don't have let's say perhaps have not developed the discipline, I'm not going to say don't have, but have not developed the discipline or allowed their discipline to come forward, to activate their discipline. For those people, well, if you have yourself a trainer, someone who's really good at fitness, okay, that person will show up whatever day they're supposed to show up, whatever day you're paying them to show up, and they will be there and they will, you'll either not show up, which means you're still going to pay them, which means you'll waste your money, or because you don't want to waste your money, you're going to show up and you're going to get it done. So I think you guys get the picture here. So this is about paying the price in order to get the rewards, whatever those rewards are. So we've got learning. We've got adjusting your attitude. We've got adopting a different mindset. We've got movement. So that means taking action. And finally, money. Here's the thing, and we're going to wrap up on this one. You must pay the price and get the rewards. And this goes back to my friend who got the ticket that started at $155 and it got bumped up to $175. And the thing about that, he did the opposite of what he needed to do so that he could get, let's say, the lesser amount or perhaps no amount, a slap on the wrist, okay, a warning of some kind, what is it, a little citation or something. He did the exact opposite. And now he's whining about having to pay the price. He's whining about the money. And I said, okay, you know what started this? And as I said, he and I, we talk very straight to each other. If when I share something with him, if he checks me and say, you know what, Pat, how about if you look at it this way? I'm open to that and vice versa. And I told him, I said, the thing that started this is because you didn't want to pay the price. You didn't want to pay for something that actually you perhaps should have paid for. In other words, you were driving almost double the speed limit. So not only were you endangering yourself, but perhaps endangering other people. So I could see why he stopped you. But here's the rest of that. Had you done the right thing and handled it the right way, I don't know how this would have turned out, but we do know you would have at least had to pay 155 as opposed to having it bumped up to 175 because you mouthed off. So I'm saying this to say it started out because he didn't want to pay the price at all, you see. And he went in with this attitude of entitlement that, hey, so what? I'm speeding. It's not that big of a deal. It happens, kind of thing. So how do you think about things when it comes to you getting more in your life, when it comes to getting the things that you desire? It's and you know what? There's a book called Aesop's Fable, and it's been around. Wow, I don't know how many years, thousands of years. I'm going to guess. I don't know, but I know I read it when I was a little girl, and I actually have a copy now because there's a lot of wisdom in it and these cute little fables. And there's one about the fox and the grapes. The fox wants the grapes, but the fox can't reach the grapes. So the fox says the grapes were probably sour anyway. But the fox didn't want to pay the price. Jump, or figure out a way to get the grapes. Okay. But as a result, he just said, I didn't want them anyway. So how many things are you turning down in your life that you truly desire? And you go, I don't care. I don't want it anyway. Because you're not willing to pay the price. You're not willing to pay. I've had people come to me and they've tried to guilt me into coaching them. I'm sorry, it's funny. And they've tried to guilt me into coaching them by saying, well, you've been in business a long time, and you've been successful in business. I mean, you should give back. Well, now, just so you know, not that I owe you guys an explanation, but I do things to give back. Okay. I do things where I don't charge anything at all, but it's my call. And I listen to them, but it also lets me know that even if I did this for them free, it lets me know that they will most likely take it for granted and they will most likely not get anything out of it because of the attitude that they're going in to the situation with. They're not willing to pay any price at all. So when you're not willing to pay any prices, you're not going to get the rewards that you desire. Okay, no, you're not going to get any reward. Okay. And I've seen people who want something for nothing. And I've seen people who don't want to pay. And we're not talking about, it's so expensive. We're not talking about that. I've seen people who complain about something that costs less than $10. Okay. And I'm not talking about coaching anymore. I'm just talking, I don't know, perhaps it's a food item or something that they really desired. And I'm like, okay, so you're complaining about the cost of something that you would actually like to have, something that would either bring you enjoyment or make your life better or teach you something that you need to know, whatever that thing is, but they don't want to pay the price. Understand this. If you're not willing to pay the price, whether it's learning, adjusting your attitude, adopting a different mindset, movement, meaning taking action and consistent action, or money, things cost. Okay. And whether if you're not willing to do any of that, okay, or what it takes, it may not take all of that. Whatever one it takes, if you're not willing to do it, then you know what? You're not going to get the reward. Not because I say so, because the scripture says you reap what you sow. So if you sow nothing, why are you expecting to get something? And then on the other hand, I've had people who come to me and they didn't have the money for coaching and they come to me with something in the right way. And then I get to decide if I want to help that person or not. And if we move away from, I guess, even my examples of coaching, I can remember being in a store and the person that was in front of me, they were buying something and they actually had cash, but they didn't have enough. So they were like $2 short and they didn't bring their debit card or whatever it is they needed. And you know what? They were like, okay, if you could hold this, I'm going to run home and I'll be back. And I thought, wow, you're going to spend, I don't know where you live, but unless you live right across the street, even so, you're going to, spend a gallon or two of gas just to run home and come back and get the thing. Obviously, they wanted the thing. But here's the thing. They were willing to say, okay, wait and come back. Now, that's the best example I can come up with at the moment. You may have seen some other things and have some better examples. Rather than that, you know what? I thought, wow, this $2 is not going to make or break me. And like I said, I give when I decide to give or when I'm led to give. If God puts it on my heart to give something, I will give it. So I said, you know what? I have $2. And here's the thing. I don't carry cash. And every now and then I end up with cash in my pocket for one reason or another. And I'm like, okay, I happen to have $2. So I gave the $2. And the lady, she said, well, if you, give me your address, I'll mail it to you. Or I'll be here if you want to set up a time. If you're here in this area, I can meet you and give you your $2. I said, you know what? It's not that deep. Just take the $2 and go. It's fine. I just, I see you want it. And what she was buying, I know she needed it. So I could help. So what I'm saying is that you have to be willing to step up and at least make an attempt at paying the price, because that's the beauty of life. See, people have helped me along the way. I never went with handout. What can you give me in exchange for nothing? Okay. And I always went with something, even if it was skills, my skills. Okay. And we all have some kind of skill that someone might need. And so I would offer something. And I can tell you, it has paid off for me in a big way. Now, I wanted to talk about this today because I thought, you know what? As I said, hearing my friend tell that story, and one of the things I said to him is I said, you know what? I guess now I said, you're paying a price. And he said it. And that's why this podcast is called Pay the Price and Get the Rewards, is because he said, yeah, I'm going to have to pay. He said, but it's the wrong price and I'm getting no reward. And I thought, wow, let's turn that around and let's make that a podcast topic for today. And so we can learn something from that situation. We can learn something from our own situation. Anytime things aren't working out for you, you have to be honest with yourself. And that's where adjusting your attitude or adopting a different mindset will come in handy for you. You have to be honest with yourself and go, okay, what is it I need to learn? What is it I need to do differently? What kind of actions do I need to take? Meaning movement. Okay. When it comes to investing in myself, when it comes to investing in my business, am I willing to do that? Even if you don't have all of the money that you need, can you find something that perhaps doesn't cost as much, that can at least get you started? That will at least put you on the right track. That will at least get you on the track so you can start to earn more. What are you willing to give? The Bible tells us it's better to give than receive. And we're going to, as I said, wrap up on this. But when we talk about it's better to give than receive, a lot of people think, okay, I'm supposed to just give. And then there are people who, then they get, let's say, a little bit disenfranchised about giving. Go, oh, it doesn't work. No, it works. It is about you understanding that when you pay the price, you are supposed to get the reward. So that's the other side of it. Once you pay and you do what you're supposed to do, you need to be open to receiving the rewards that come with that. Now, me telling the lady I didn't need $2 back, yeah, that wasn't a big deal. But here's the thing. I gave her that $2. Okay. Now, I really wasn't expecting any rewards, but I can tell you, and I don't know if it was a week later or 2 weeks later, I got a new customer. Okay. I got a new client, and actually someone bought one of my books, and I don't know who that person was because it's on Amazon, and I don't, they don't show you the name of the customer. Someone bought my books, and several things, good things happened along the way. Now, I didn't give the $2 for something good to happen. I gave it because, well, it was a need and she was doing her part. So sometimes when you do your part, God's going to step in and he's going to fill in that gap for you. And when that gap is filled in and you take that and you kick in with movement. Okay. That's part of paying the price. Then you're going to get some amazing rewards. And the rewards that will come will be rewards that you didn't expect. And do yourself a favor. Don't say, oh, never mind. I don't need it. It's okay. No, if someone's trying to bless you, let them bless you, because when they bless you, then you get blessed, but they get to carry out a part of their mission and they get blessed also. So with that being said, I think I've talked enough about paying the price, and getting the rewards. So make sure you look and see what prices are you willing to pay. If you are not achieving your goals and not getting the things that you desire in your life, I can assure you there is some price that you must pay, and you're not willing to pay that price. Sometimes it could be as simple as, going to bed early so you can get up earlier and spend quiet time with God. I don't know what that price is. We could go on and on with, ideas as to what kind of price perhaps you want to look at. But you know what? If you sit quietly, and most of us, if we spend time, with ourselves, some quiet time, we can see where we need to kind of fill in the holes. We can see what it is we must do. Okay. We can even see how did we perhaps go down a path or get on a road and end up, with someone who was not supposed to be in our lives. That's not even a bad thing, because guess what? Again, you paid the wrong price, but you learned something. So now you're going to get back on the right track, because you're going to learn and pay that price as well and continue to learn more so that you don't go down that road again. So I could go on and on with this pay the price thing. So listen, you guys, remember to go ahead and sign up for our success series, summer success series. Go to designingyourlifetoday.com/success series. And I will be sending out some information around July 13th, and some resources, and you guys can kind of get started. And you'll get more details about the Summer Success Series. It officially starts July 20th, but you want to get signed up early and get kind of what I call the early bird resources. And no, it does not cost anything for you to sign up. So I'm not talking about paying the price so that we can charge you to sign up for the Success Series. Now, full disclosure, there will be some things that we have, but they won't be expensive throughout that you may want to participate in, but that's your call. But we'll have lots of other resources that won't cost you anything. And the object of the game is to help you really get that momentum that you need, attach it to your calling, reinforce the idea that you are built by design to win, and to just help you be excited about life and build that magnificent life and get those rewards. In the meantime, do life with power, knowing that you're built by design to win.